Hi everyone, my name is Karen and I have antique booths and I sell online. And I have a lot of friends ask me, how do you do that? Well, we're going to figure it out. We're going to start first with an antique booth. You can do it. Hi everyone, this is Karen. I am from Pretty Thrifty Shop. That is my business. I have two booths in antique malls. I sell online on Poshmark, on Etsy, and on eBay. And I do this more now. I'm a retired school teacher. I taught middle school for 23 years. And I started kind of getting into this for something fun and different to do. And then when I retired, I realized, you know what, I really like doing this. And it can make you some money. So I'm going to talk to you about how to start an antique booth. I have a lot of people who say, I don't know how you do this. Where do you get your stuff? How do you do this? How do you set this all up? So, we're going to talk today about how to do that. The first thing, I guess, what I usually want to tell most people is, what do you have to sell? It's what I ask them first, anyway. And what type of things do you think you'd want to sell? What they don't realize is there's different styles of booths. A lot of people think you just buy things, throw them in a booth, price them, and that's it. And I guess to some people that could be it, but it's not really the most effective way to have an antique booth if you want to actually make some money at it. And I say antique booth, but I'm also covering antique booths with vintage. Some places have curated where they have artisan things in there. We're going to talk about those different style booths. And you need to think about which one would appeal to you and which one do you think you could see yourself doing? Because that's really what you need to think about as we go through this. Let's take a look at some of the different type of booths and in the different types of antique malls and see what you think. Okay, so to start out, we're going to talk about booths and malls. Not malls like we all remember on a Friday night, but an antique mall or a mall that has curated shops. A lot of times now we're finding they can be a mixture. So let's talk about those different styles and see what appeals to you. So one end that you're going to find, one style that you're going to find is a high-end antique mall or antique store. So these are the antique stores that are strictly antiques, 100 plus years old, in good to excellent condition. The pros here is you can usually ask for higher prices because you have quality pieces. They're beautiful. The market is very geared for that specific type of shopper that's looking for the high-end piece. They have a certain style in mind, and hopefully you have that for them. The cons for this type of area is that the sourcing can be more challenging because you've got to go out there and look for these high-end antiques, estate sales. It's a lot of footwork, but you can get some really beautiful pieces and you can get some good prices on them. Auction houses would be another place for you to go to look to try and purchase items for a store like this. This does not appeal to a wide array of shoppers. Not everyone is filling their home with 100 plus years old antiques. But if they just want a piece here or there to kind of add to what they have, sure. The other thing is you need to be very knowledgeable in your field working in a high-end antique mall. You need to know the different periods, the different styles, the different makers, the manufacturers. So this is just, if this is your interest, you can do quite well at this. A lot of times an antique mall will work in conjunction with an auction house. So you can kind of get your hand in both there. So that works for you. But again, it's not kind of the norm of what we're talking about here, but it can be very successful. Okay, the second type place that we're looking for is kind of it's more the norm. So it's an antique and vintage only mall. So a lot of times the rules are that you are limited to stocking your booth with antiques, which is 100 plus years old, or vintage, 25 plus years old. So when you think about some of the things that are vintage now, um, to my brain, the 80s shouldn't be over 25 years old, but they are. in the 90s and, some of the 2000s. So, um, you can get away with getting some things that are to us feel too new to be in an antique mall, but they are truly vintage. So, people are collecting them. Some malls will also allow collectibles such as comic books, toys, coins. If you're an expertise in that niche, you can bring people into the mall. So having a booth there of those things, that's appealing to the people who own the mall because they want people to come in for certain things. The pros here, you are appealing to a wide range of buyers. Your sourcing can be a little easier because you can hit thrift stores and yard sales and estate sales, and you really have a wide range of places to go to look for your items. The cons here is you could be still be limited to attracting the buyer to what you want to carry. For instance, if all you sell is comic books, you're only going to attract people that want to buy comic books, right? But for someone who does that, I would see that as a pro, not a con, because you're actually going to be pulling people into your area. So think about if you want to go into an antique and a vintage only, what kind of things would you want to carry that would appeal to either a lot of people or one specialized niche of people? If your booth is not curated and you have antiques and vintage kind of mixed in together, it can look a little messy if it's not curated. Just keep that in mind. All right, number three we're going to talk about here is a highly curated shop. I see a lot of these now, especially after the pandemic. During the pandemic, people were home and they got into hobbies because let's face it, we were all bored. People started going back to the old ways. They made soaps and candles and jewelry and honey. I remember we were doing, around this area, we were doing a wine and craft basket that we would just go drop off at strangers' doors. It was just a thing to do because we were so bored. We would get what we had at home, a bottle of wine and a few things, and you'd go just leave it on somebody's doorstep. And it was just because we were looking for things to do. So now all of these things that people did and they got really good at them, they want to sell them. The thing is that they don't really want to own a whole shop. So going into an area that has antiques and vintage and also has artisan goods is a good match because you're not paying the full rent of a store. You don't have to worry about staffing a store. You just have a little area or maybe even a little corner of a store, right? So booths are very curated. So they are very stylized, artistically arranged. The thing is, you can appeal to a really wide range of shoppers. This is the type of place that you're going to have a girls' afternoon. You're going to go get coffee on a Sunday and you're going to go and do vintage and artisan and then have lunch and go back and do another shop. So this is the type of area. It can be overwhelming to keep up with it because it does take a lot of work to curate it. You're going to need to be at your booth at least once or twice a week. You can probably ask a little higher prices here. It looks very appealing, so people are going to want to buy. You will probably pay a higher rent at a place like this because, again, they're really appealing to people, including vendors. So they are going to ask you probably a higher rent. And there's going to be more rules about what you can put in your booth. For example, if you sell, let's say, candles and you're trying to go into a booth, if somebody else is selling candles in that mall, you're probably not going to be able to. They will probably have a limit. So you've got to look on that. You've also got to look at rules as far as your display and how many times you need to go in there. So there are a lot of rules, but these can be very successful if you're willing to put the work in. Number four on our list is a flea market type shop or a thrift shop. So this one is like the flip of the last one, okay? There's usually not many rules here. You can usually carry what you want as long as it's legal. You can mix new in with the old, which is great. So you get to do what you want to do and how you want to display it. Some customers are going to love the thrill of the hunt looking through your booth. They're going to dive right in, see what treasures they can find. The cons to this is it can look very chaotic to some people. It's going to be overwhelming to some of your customers. They're going to get in there and kind of be like, yeah, no, and back out. The treasure hunters are going to love diving in, but they're also going to expect bargain prices because they're doing the work at diving in. So if you're just buying stuff and you're not cleaning it and you're not curating it and you're just putting it in your booth, you can't expect to ask for the prices on the higher end items that you would get in a more curated space. So pros and cons to both of that. Um, I would say that you might be able to find cheaper rent at one like this, but not always. So you really got to kind of walk around to different antique malls and ask a lot of questions as far as rents and what the expectations are before you decide to go into one. All right, so in short, what is your style? So I've kind of broken it down into three separate areas. So either a highly curated, kind of one style. So this does limit you. Think farmhouse, Joanna Gaines, right? Everything was shiplap and white and black, and you had some metal in there. It was very, very successful, but you are limited to that one realm. Okay. But it can work if that's what you want, because you can bring people in based on your style. Same thing for, let's say, mid century modern. A lot of people are very attracted to that. Vintage time periods, if you wanted to do, some people have done like all Pyrex or all 50s or all flower power and groovy, right? Some people are into just doing primitives. Everything is primitive in their booth. Any of these can work, including collections, all toys, all comics, all vinyl. The thing is, you need to advertise or bring people in, use your social media to get people in and make them aware that you are here and this is what you have. So this can do very well with your target market. It doesn't appeal to everyone. You know, not everyone's going to have your style. They're going to have a different style, which means you're not going to be getting that shopper. So you've kind of got to balance, like, how popular do you think what you want to sell is, and how many people do you think you can appeal to? This style does require a lot more maintenance. So it's a lot more curating, getting the right mixture of products for your booth, and a lot more stylization. The middle of the road here, B, somewhat curated, a few styles. You can put a few styles in together. Absolutely. It can still look cohesive. You don't have to have everything stylized just in one booth. You can put, the right side of your booth and the left side of your booth, or little different corners of your booth to make vignettes to style them in that period. Um, I myself kind of run into this because I can't make up my mind what I like, so I keep buying different things. It got to the point where we actually separated into two booths, where we kept one more the kitchen things that were brighter and put one that was more the earth tones and the more primitive and older in another booth, because we just felt it was too much of a mishmash. But you could do that right in your booth yourself. So this could appeal to a wider range of customers because you have different people with different styles that are going and look for your things, but it can look less cohesive if you don't maintain it. So that's the problem that we had before we separated the booths, is that it was just looking a little too jumbled. And for us, it didn't appeal to us. So we thought it's probably not going to appeal to customers. So we ended up separating it. But either way, it is a good possibility. C, the last one here, the anything and everything. This can work. You're not limited with what you have to carry. And again, those treasure hunt people are going to love the search. This can appeal to a wide range of buyers, because if you have a little bit of everything, then everybody can look in there. But it can look messy and chaotic, and that can be a turnoff for some people because it's going to be overwhelming, and you're probably not going to get the prices that, say, somebody in an A would get, because your things, people who are bargain hunters are going to, or treasure hunters are going to expect to get somewhat of a bargain from that. So just kind of A, B, and C, something for you to think about. Which one is your style? Well, I hope this video helps you narrow down your style choices and what you could do with your booth, and kind of gives you a little insight on how it feels to set up a booth and what you're going to need to do, how much time you're going to need to put in. and the questions to ask when you go to the different antique malls to see if that's something that would even interest you. My name is Karen. My business is Pretty Thrifty Shop. If you want to follow us on Facebook, we are also on Instagram and TikTok. And if you could do me a huge favor and like and share this videos, give other people a chance to find us, I would greatly appreciate that. Bye till next time.